how do you guys feel about their LiDAR? Everybody knew it was coming. It was pretty rock solid that it was going to happen. But how did you feel about them announcing it, how they announced it, the fact that it is actually there? How beneficial do you feel it will be to either of you?
Oh, I think when it comes to doing the AR stuff, I think when it comes to using the Measure app, which I think is a great idea, the idea that you don't even need a measuring tape anymore, you can just, you could just aim your phone, pick 2 points, boom, you have the exact measurement, which will be more accurate with LiDAR. I think that if, like we talked about, I think it was last week, if Apple does make a car, self-driving cars require LiDAR, or they use LiDAR to help kind of identify things around them. So this could be a way for them to start collecting data as far as using LiDAR effectively goes. I think for their weird fake depth of field thing they use, I think that's going to be an effective use of that as well. I'm more curious about how the apps are going to use it than anything else.
Well, Snapchat's going to use it all day long.
Oh yeah, they're going to be putting all kinds of faces on you. It's just, it's going to be. Otherwise, they added Apple ProRAW. I wish they would add Apple ProRes to the video recording capabilities. It'll probably be next year's phone, because that would save me a hell of a lot of time converting these to ProRes if it was just done. Mind you, that might not be possible because a 4K ProRes is like some ridiculous size.
The phone probably doesn't have enough storage for that.
Yeah, so you probably wouldn't be able to get away with that. But the ProRAW stuff is kind of nice. It's not real RAW. As long as Photoshop treats it like RAW, I think it's fine. What do you get? We got some more HDR stuff, some more smart filtering stuff. Honestly, like, until they can make a lens that is smudge resistant, I really don't see the point of this for the average consumer, because I still see time and time again from the average like picture on Facebook and what have you, this smudgy, crappy looking picture that somebody took. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because RAW is incredibly beneficial for people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, it is.
And with...
No, nothing? Okay.
With iPhones being...
I'm sorry.
Phones in general, really. With phones being so easy to carry around in your pocket, you always have them. You text with them. They're effectively people's lifelines nowadays. Mm-hmm. So you almost always have your phone with you. But to the average photographer, like, you don't typically run to the grocery store with your DSLR just on your hip. Like, I do know people who do that, but I would say the average photographer isn't going to take their giant camera with them to go buy some creamer at the grocery store or whatever. But there are so many moments that you find yourself in life as a photographer where you're like, I wasn't planning for this, but this is beautiful and I just have to take a photo of it. And having the ability to edit in RAW in those moments where you don't have your DSLR available, you're just like living life as it is, and you just want to capture that moment. If they do it right, I can see it being a huge game changer, because there are so many photographers nowadays too who believe that, yes, your DSLR is always going to capture the best photo, but the iPhone is not far off with how they do things. Like, there is a huge difference in quality if you know what you're doing and you know what you're looking for and you want this particular outcome, and your phone can't necessarily always give that to you. But I'm very interested to see, because effectively during the show what they said was, we know you guys want RAW, so we're going to give you RAW, but we also highly believe in our software and how we do things. And so we're not going to just not do our software part and just give you RAW. We're still going to put our software enhancing in the photos no matter what.
Right.
So they're trying to do this weird thing where they add...
It's like pre-Photoshop RAW.
Yeah, they add their software that says, okay, I recognize this as a face. Let me make this a little bit brighter, but let me also add RAW to it. I think that it's going to do either really incredibly well, or it's going to fail?
I don't think it's going to fail, and I don't think it's going to be not used. Like and I hear the point when it comes to like you want a really good camera. You know, if you're out and about, you just don't have your camera on. You want to be able to take a good shot, but like at some point, there's going to be a camera that the iPhone does or any phone where it's like it's good enough. And my question to you is like, you know, you clearly have a, you know, I know that you have a very deep passion for taking good pictures and cameras. So that's the photographer in you, which is wonderful, and you take some beautiful pictures. But like, there's so much focus on the camera that it seems as though there are times where the rest of the phone, because it is a phone, mind you, it does 1.5 billion other things, kind of get offset. So my question is like, at what point would even you say, all right, stop focusing on the camera, it's good enough?
I mean, that's a tough one.
Because there has to be a point. There has to be, I would assume there would be.
And I do, so I don't really know how to answer that in like simply, because I think that they have already reached the point where they need to stop focusing on the camera so much. The phone itself has not developed enough. We need to continue to develop the phone and the things that it can do. Mm-hmm. You know, I do love Apple, but I started off with an Android, and I loved the customization features of the Android. I loved the fact that I could change the font of anything I wanted. I loved that I could put the apps wherever I wanted. Like, I absolutely loved my Droid. Mm-hmm. It was a Droid. was the phone.
It was literally yeah.
It was a Droid. But I loved that, and I was kind of hesitant to move over to iPhone. But then I moved over to iPhone, and it integrates with everything, and I love it so much. And so, like, I'm kind of in this weird position where I don't think I'm going to move off of iPhone at this point because everything else is Apple. And I do wish that they would continue to develop the phone, but loving photography as much as I do, the camera means probably too much to me in the world of tech, because I could just take my DSLR with me. You know, I could,
but that's inconvenient. That defeats the purpose of having a really good camera in the thing. It is.
And that's part of the reason I love the fact that they keep upping the camera. Right. But the raw, if I had to say it, like, the majority, and there are a lot of social media people nowadays, there are a lot of people who love to take beautiful photos, stuff like that. So like photography is becoming a little more common than it used to be. But I still feel like if you're going to develop a phone, you should probably focus on the phone first.
Or at least some other aspects of it. As far as the RAW thing, I don't see why there's any reason why the 11 Pro Max can't do RAW. That's a software thing. The sensor is the sensor. It's not a hardware thing. It is something that, okay, the sensor is giving me this data. Mm-hmm. The person,
and you're taking it for full.
And you're taking it, yes. You're taking, there's a bunch of, there's a bunch of other data that comes along with it, but yes. Yeah. And so that's not something I can say is like when it comes to like a software feature, like the iPhone 4S, they didn't really do anything special with it. They just added Siri.
Yeah.
Now there was a tier of phone. That was when they did the 4, then the 4S, and the 5, then the 5S, and the 6, and the 6S. The S was supposed to be a minor kind of update where it is, nothing physical. That's how it used to be back in the Steve Jobs era. Mm-hmm. And it was here's a cool software feature, maybe some minor hardware tweaks. This phone feels like the 11 Pro Max S, which is it's already too many words, and now it just feels like that. So, but that's what it feels like to me. But they just changed the body shape, and they gave ProRes and or ProRAW and LiDAR.
Yeah, yeah,
which is tiny. Where's the big thing?
And I did want to say this real quick before we jump.
Yeah.
Topics. The most interesting thing to me that I'm looking forward to seeing with the ProRes RAW or Apple ProRAW or whatever it is I'm really curious to see what that photo looks like, because when you take a real raw photo, it's not publishable.
No.
It's very flat.
Yeah.
It's very
it's very neutral.
It's
very neutral.
And so I'm very curious to see, because it depends on
that's what I mean.
who they're...
Will Photoshop treat it as a raw?
No, Photoshop will not.
They said that?
Mm-hmm.
Then,
it's not considered a raw photo in that sense.
Then what
but
can
it has the same capabilities of editing that a raw photo would.
But Photoshop won't open up the raw editor thing when you bring it into Photoshop.
It's not a raw photo.
But that doesn't answer the question. Just because it's not a raw, if it's a type of raw.
No, it will not be treated as raw per what I understood.
But then it's effectively just a really good JPEG.
I could be wrong, but the way that I understood it from the event was that it will not be treated as a pure raw photo.
We'll have to.
But they are implementing, they did say that they are going to add this format to a lot of products. So I'm assuming that Adobe's going to get it really soon.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to read it and understand it, but it won't be true raw.
And that still just sounds like a glorified, because the whole point of a raw is that you can change everything after snapping it. If you don't get that, at least half of that stuff, changing exposure, ISO, aperture, if you don't get at least the basics, then there's no point.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is that the iPhone is not capable of doing something it's not even an issue if it can't take good pictures. It comes to depth of field. The sensor's not big enough. It's not equipped. You can't do that with a thing that's that size. But we will have to see when we get our hands on one, and hopefully we will soon. November's going to be a busy ass month for us.
It is.
Oh.
There's